I'm Debbie Godfrey, and this is the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. In season 2, I'm answering your questions about parenting. So feel free to go to the link in the description and leave me a voice message, and I may answer your question on this podcast. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy today's Pep Talk.
The call last night with kind of that conversation about like asking, if the other person can be a mediator and kind of help out, and we sort of had a conversation after that
Oh,
call
good.
about, how would that best play out, because when we were kind of thinking about it, it was like, hey, when you came in as the mediator in there, you focused more, in my mind anyway, on Julie, because it was like not in a, she wasn't admitting the the action, right? And so then we were kind of discussing about what is the right approach, and me being Val's mentioned before, like I like to, I guess maybe almost have a set fix. Okay, this is always going to be the way that it's going to happen, I think. And so we're kind of trying to talk about that and come up with ideas. And some of the things we're batting around was like, is the best thing to do when there is an argument, basically to have that other person come in, see if mediation is required, and if everybody's okay with it, is it a 5 minute timeout for everybody from that thing that needs to happen, and then come back together to have a conversation after that, or is it better to kind of split everybody up? Because part of the problem is I find that it'll get kind of so escalated that I think we're all okay having somebody come in and help, but it's how do you kind of de-escalate that situation without, I think if Val came in and kind of was challenging Paige about kind of taking ownership of something when Paige is totally kind of redlining, I don't know if Paige would be very receptive of that right away. And I think if I was in that situation as well, I don't think I would be overly happy with it if I was being challenged either. So, like, is that something where, is it okay to kind of break off at that point and just say, okay, or is it, does the mediation have to happen in front of everybody, or is there maybe like the mediator can go between the two people? Because we kind of, I had raised that, and Val.
He mentioned stories about talking to each person separately, and I said, well, I don't think that would necessarily go over well, just because then the other person might be on the defensive, thinking that you're on that person's side. I may have been over analyzing it, but I thought the idea was to sort of talk to both people at the same time and see what you could do.
Yeah, and the idea was to be more of a mediator, and I think that you are onto something. I did bring out or focus on and maybe jump in too much, like more than would have been effective, and especially in your situation. So I don't know if I have a definite answer for you, John, other than that it's great that you guys are talking about this, and I would pick one of the approaches and try it for a week or two and see how it goes. And if you're not quite satisfied, try the other approach for a week or two and see how that goes, and start experimenting and seeing what works best. But just having the conversation together like you are of, how can we do this most effectively, where you, Valerie, can come in as a mediator and help out, and you, John, can get supported without being undermined, and also have, your daughter be seen, heard, understood, acknowledged, whatever. So I think that's, I think it's a great, I think it's a great question to be in, and I don't think you need to know for sure what you're going to do. You just need to keep talking about it.
Trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. Trial and error. And what I do is I look at my results to figure out if it was the best thing to do. So did it work? Okay, that was good. Or, oh, that didn't work. Let's not do that one again.
And I guess it probably all depends what the situation is. It might be a different approach too, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. So, that's another thing. You could say, well, sometimes you're going to want to come in and mediate with everybody there, and other times you're going to come in and see that maybe everybody's just too melted down and angry with each other. And John, maybe that would be the clue that this would be a time where everybody was better talked to separately. So if the situation has escalated so far out of control that talking together doesn't really seem like a good idea, then you can try the other approach. And I think your concern, Valerie, was that it might be taken wrong, again, can be handled with your communication. So don't take this wrong. It's not that you're in trouble that we're talking separately. It's just that everybody's so hot right now, we want everybody to have time to cool off and talk about this or vent individually without having the other person there triggering you.
Yeah, and I think for us maybe coming up with like things kind of to go back and analyze it, right? To say, okay, what was the problem? What could have fixed the problem, right? Like, are we looking for acknowledgement of the action? Are we looking for them to do something as an end result? Are we looking for a changed attitude or behavior from them? And then maybe I think maybe that's something that we have to do more, kind of taking away after whatever that incident is to kind of help us be able to target how we come at it and what we say during that process, where to make us more aware of, like, okay, when you come in as the mediator, right off the bat, what are you looking for that end result? Like, are you looking for an acknowledgement from the kids, or are you looking to say, okay, you know what, you shouldn't be doing this, or were we at fault and it's like, you just need to calm down a little bit, it's not that big of a deal, that type of thing. I think is probably going to be important for us to sort of take away and talk about after the fact.
Yeah, and I love that, because as you're talking, I'm just imagining like a note card with 3 or 4 things on it, like a checklist. Like, is this about wanting an acknowledgement? Is this about getting an action taken? And so as you guys are discussing the possible outcomes desired, maybe you do have those on a little list. So Valerie, when you come in, you actually have a checklist that you can, you can make those comments. Like, and that, I think, John, wouldn't that feel supportive to you, that you've had this conversation before, knowing what the possibilities are, and if Val came in with that would feel very supportive in helping you get to whatever the result is you need there.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, it would be nice to know, because sometimes, like, when you get into an argument and then you kind of look back, it's sort of like, wow, that was really dumb. Like, what was the that whole thing? Like, it was all because you wanted to wear a different pair of pants, right? And it's like, what a stupid thing to have to deal with, and maybe that's where, having something like that is just like, okay, like, what do we reasonably expect from the kids to kind of come out with, right? Like, is it, if they're going to argue about something like that, what is that kind of outcome? And I think in some ways it goes back to sort of just letting them be hands off and saying, hey, you know what, then you need to figure it out. And if you end up going to school with, like, today it was, I guess in Fahrenheit it was like 50 here or something like that. It was freezing. If you want to go to school with shorts on today, well then, I'll put a pair of pants in your bag and you can go and change in the washroom if that's what you want. But that'll have to be something you figure out, right? Like, things like that, where maybe we just need and maybe that's more for me. Like, I just need to identify what in that argument I'm really expecting to get out of having that argument to start with.
Yeah, this sounds fabulous. This sounds like a great monkey wrench. I love monkey wrenches. and what you're coming up with is a really systematic way to approach the conflicts in a concrete way. In a way that's really going to make a change in how they develop and keeping them from escalating. It's awesome. Custom tailor-made for your own family. Good job, John. Yeah, that's great. And it's neat too that you guys are talking about this. You two are very fortunate to be taking this class together. Thank you, John, for showing up and supporting, because the moms all wish the dads would do this together, because it does put you on the same page, and it's just not the same having mom trying to coach dad. It's better for you to be hearing it on your own and developing your own ideas related to what you're hearing here. And so yeah, you get huge bonus hero points. Val, you make sure you give him lots of acknowledgement, because yeah, that's amazing that you've shown up this way. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's nicer, actually, to be honest, to be able to hear it, because then we do have that opportunity after the call just to have a little bit of time to sort of recap and talk about things instead of trying to listen to it or something after the fact. It sort of miss something in it, right? Where maybe it's not as there in everybody's memory to say, oh yeah, remember when this happened? Like, what do you think about that? And what do you think about that? I think it's been nice for me to be here and listen to it.
He doesn't listen to me anyway, Deb. So.
Well, most of them don't. And it's not for any reason other than we're in a relationship with this person. It's just better to come from a third party, and like I said, you develop your own ideas off of it that way. And so hopefully, hopefully it inspires other people. There's not a lot of people that are going to listen to this call other than the families that are on it. And we do have Sally's husband has been on the phone too when they've been here, which is great too. So they get to do the same thing. And it's just wonderful and amazing. And yeah, it's so much easier and more effective. So cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing it alone, to be honest with you.
Oh, a lot of moms do, and actually some dads too. So not everybody has that support, and but when you do, and you're on the same page, it's much easier.
Thank you for listening to today's Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. If you're into season 2 and you're listening to all these great questions that the parents have and answers and ideas for what to do in all these different situations with your kids, please help us out. Like, share, subscribe, and especially leave us a positive review. All of that helps the podcast grow, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again for being here, and happy parenting.